Hi, so today I'm going to talk about why your software design is going to fail. And I'm going to hopefully reassure you that that's okay. So what I believed when I started designing software, I've been a software developer for about 20 years and maybe for about a decade of those I've been doing software designs, so architectural diagrams and sort of class descriptions and flow diagrams and those kind of things. And what I initially believed was that designing good software is easy. And it was easy because if you get together a bunch of smart, motivated people who care about the outcome and the requirements, and you apply best practices, interfaces, boundaries, and layers, you agree on a plan and you execute it, that you'll get a great outcome. And, what I discovered was that this wasn't happening. And I began to wonder whether I was really bad at this. And you might be wondering the same thing. If you're doing software designs, you might be encountering a bunch of different problems. And I'm going to go through some that I've noticed over the years. So the first problem is that good is often hard to define. And that's because we all have different backgrounds and motivations, desires and pressures, incentives. And, it's rare for a group of well-meaning, well-incentivized, motivated individuals who care about outcomes to agree on what the best course of action is. So defining good is going to be your first problem. Your next problem is that your stakeholders might not be able to explain to you clearly what they want. They might not even be clear about what they want in their own minds. But even if they can, you might have different groups of users that want or believe they want different things, and some of those requirements might be conflicting. Some of the things you're asked for by your stakeholders might not even be technically feasible. Your third problem is that, if you want to apply best practices, you need to know what they are, and those are seldom clear. I think that software in particular is really, there are a lot of opinionated evangelists in the discipline, and sifting through who actually knows what they're talking about, who's actually been through the trenches, who's actually tried this stuff and failed and learnt to work through it. They're hard to find. It's hard to tell, especially if you haven't been through this stuff yourself. How are you meant to discern between people that know what they're talking about and who don't? Fashion's a really powerful force. When I was coming up, WinForms and C++ were very vogue. Now there's a whole bunch of different technologies. I've seen some come and go. Silverlight, Flash. You might have to build on what you already have in your stack, and that might mean that some of the so-called best practices aren't available to you. You might have a bunch of different sort of practical requirements that actually mean that you have to just get something working, and that's life. Okay, the fourth problem, and I sort of alluded to this before, getting a consensus is really hard, but I think that it's achievable, and particularly if you can achieve it, if you can grind through it, making revisions, taking feedback, addressing the feedback, doing it again, and eventually you will find a set of requirements and technical, like a set of system parts, events, which teams will do what's the next step. And that's a magic thing, the next step. If you can execute the next step, then you can move on. But that's not the end of the story. So execution doesn't always go smoothly. Your developer might misread your requirement or just do whatever they want anyway. One of the teams might not have resource and so won't be able to execute what they said that they thought they were going to be able to. You might build something and it doesn't actually do what you thought. You know, you might think that you have a solution and you run the build, you put it into production, and actually it doesn't do what you thought it was going to do. You deliver what was asked for and the stakeholder says that it doesn't do what they wanted or they've changed their mind. Or, you know, you deliver something and actually a new requirement sort of falls out of the woodwork, and it might be one that says, well, we can't use this until you sort this out. And that's okay. I think that this is the design process. You get feedback, you know, you build, you get feedback from the environment, and you move on. Welcome to the design process. What do things look like now? Start thinking about the next step, and, you know, does it still look the same? You had a plan that you carefully litigated, took feedback from stakeholders. You know, is it possible that you can still reuse some of the stuff that you designed last time? If you can, great. If you can't, well, maybe you need to go back to the design process and start working through what does the next step look like. But probably you learned something. So, to summarize, the design process is a process, which is why they call it a process. It's not a blueprint. You don't have to solve the design and then build it. What happens is you build and it gets shaped as you build, and every step gives you feedback. And good designs will respond to the change. In the real world, design is messy, and that's okay. The plan will change. Your requirements will evolve. Your people and your environment are going to surprise you. And if you're learning and adapting, guess what? You are doing the design process and you're doing it right. Did you like this? Do you want help? I'm working on some material that helps developers and architects work through the design process and deliver working systems. If you like this, let me know, and I'll talk to you next time.